Hello everybody, and welcome to Insider's Guide. Today I'm just kidding, but man, I've always wanted to do that. Anyway, today's gonna be a little different from the usual content that we put out here on SRG Skiing. You guys might be wondering, where is Shangrai, and who is this random sleep-deprived college student talking to me? Well, for those of you who don't know, my name is Arjun, and I joined SRG Skiing a few years ago. I'm from California, and while I've mostly skied Lake Tahoe my entire life, I've been slowly branching out to some new places over the past few seasons. On a whim, back in July 2025, I decided my winter break would be spent skiing Alberta and British Columbia. I remember being a bit nervous about that decision because Banff doesn't always get the most snowfall in the early season, but then all the articles started flooding my feed. Record snow year for Canada, snowiest December ever, Wild West and Delirium Dive, early opening. I was so hyped, and before I knew it, my butt was in that airplane seat en route to Calgary. This trip was going to be a beast. It involved almost 7 straight days of skiing with an awesome crew. 4 days split between Sunshine Village and Lake Louise, and then a push west. 2 days at Revelstoke, and a final day at the one and only Whistler Black Elm. I arrived at my hotel in Banff, only to find my roommate as sick as a dog in the bed opposite of me. I went to bed with a bit of an itch in my throat, and woke up the next morning with a really sore throat. Oh well, no time to think about that. I woke up at around 5:30 a.m. to ensure a proper breakfast and guarantee a spot on that first bus out to Lake Louise. Today was a powder day, so you already know the drill. Absolutely 0 friends. None. The morning was frigid, and visibility was a bit poor, but the vibes were absolutely immaculate as we rolled up to the mountain. My original plan was to head straight to the backside, but patrol was still finishing mitigation, so that terrain stayed closed for the morning. I decided to warm up nearby and wait for any rope drops. Top of the world it was. I found some really nice pockets of snow in the flight chutes and Kernahans especially. And then it happened. On my next ride up, I saw a ski patroller heading towards the vertical cornice gate. I immediately booked it over, skied through the gate, and got first tracks down this epic part of Eagle Ridge 7. Now, I was in full bucket list mode. I raced down to the Paradise Chair and headed back up for one of my most anticipated lines of the entire trip, ER3. Unfortunately, the visibility had taken a turn for the worse. The snow itself was incredible, but I had to ski this line way more defensively than I wanted to. I quickly realized that skiing the mostly treeless backside in visibility like this was just not worth it, so I made a slight pivot. I headed lower down the mountain and checked out the brand new Richardson's Ridge area for the first time. This area is entirely below treeline, and the glades in between the marked runs were home to some excellent stashes. Staying below treeline was clearly the move, so I headed further down to Larch and Ptarmigan. Rock Garden, the Ptarmigan Chutes, and especially Tower 12 all skied excellently. Eventually, the visibility started improving again, so I hustled back up to Paradise and squeezed in a few more laps down ER3, where I managed to hit one of the largest cliff drops of my life. By that point, it was getting late in the day. I headed up summit for one final, really long top-to-bottom run. My quads were absolutely destroyed, but it was 100% worth it. That cough is starting to get a bit worse, and I'm feeling a little bit feverish. That can't be great. Well, time to blast some Tylenol and pretend like it doesn't exist. This was the day that I had been waiting for. Since my previous trip in 2023, I've been dreaming about coming back to Sunshine Village to check out its 2 legendary freeride zones, Delirium Dive and the Wild West. I'd bought all the required avalanche gear well before the trip, and I even had 2 buddies lined up to ski with. We rolled up to the mountain and headed up the gondola, only to realize that both freeride zones were closed for the day due to avalanche conditions? Are you freaking kidding me? The dive and the west were literally both open the previous day. Talk about unlucky. Well, I guess it's time to improvise. We headed up to Goatseye for a warm-up run down one of the steepest non-freeride runs at Sunshine, Hell's Kitchen. The trees absolutely ripped, and the snow quality was just excellent. It felt good to get redemption on a run that I had frankly skied pretty poorly the last time I was here. That was a lot of fun.
Oh boy.
But it was time to get even more creative. We headed up to Wawa, turned on our beacons, and dropped into one of the coolest side country areas at Sunshine Village, Side Door. As expected from a zone that's outside the resort's boundaries, Side Door was home to some of the best snow we skied on the entire trip. The entrances, however, were far more technical than I assumed they'd be. In between Side Door laps, we also checked out the garbage chutes off Standish and found a pretty wicked straight line. After that, it was back up Wawa for another Side Door lap. This entrance wasn't quite as bad as the first one, but it was still plenty gnar, and somehow the snow was still skiing incredibly well. To end the day, we explored a few other zones around the mountain. The Southside chutes themselves were awful, but the trees below skied great. The shoulder was a bit of a pain to get to, but the snow quality made it worth the effort. All things considered, the day was a lot of fun. We had definitely made the most of Sunshine's terrain, despite the freeride zones staying closed.
We did it!
Mr. Stark, I don't feel so good. Need Theraflu. The original plan was to ski Sunshine Village today and save Lake Louise for tomorrow. But after talking with Patrol the day before, it seemed unlikely that either Sunshine freeride zone would open. So, we took a gamble and pivoted to Louise instead. And it absolutely paid off. Along with our group from yesterday, 2 of my buddies from back home joined us today, making 5 of us on the mountain. The crew was absolutely stacked. At first, the day followed the same flow from day 1 at Louise, warming up on top of the world while we waited for the viz to improve in the backside. As the sun finally began to peek out for the first time all trip, we scored dreamy laps down Men's Downhill and Kernahans. When the visibility finally cleared, we headed towards the summit lift to ski our first Whitehorn 2 line of the trip, Sea Gully. The snow in here was absolutely unreal. From there, we blasted down to the Paradise Lift and farmed the terrain off of Eagle Ridge for lap after lap. ER3, ER6, Big 7, Kitty's Corner. We were absolutely scoring. Eventually, we made our way back to Summit, and by pure chance, we were there when Patrol dropped the rope on D, E, F, G, and H Gully for the first time all season. We beelined it straight to the super aesthetic E Gully, and the snow here was deep. After a quick lunch break, we headed back up Summit one last time to check out Brown Cow, Maine. The hike up wasn't nearly as bad as expected and offered some incredible views of the ski area. By this point, however, the light was really flat and my goggles were fogging up badly. I was barely able to see the terrain when I dropped in, but the snow was so good it hardly even mattered. It was only day 3, and I thought the trip had already peaked. Little did I know what day 4 had in store for us. Holy crap, my voice is gone. This cough is still killing me. Time to see if our gamble paid off. We geared up in the main lodge, anxiously refreshing Twitter and Instagram, waiting on an update from SSV Snow Safety. Then, we saw it. Wild West scheduled to open pending assessment. Holy I'm about to lose my mind. To kill some time, we did a few laps over at Standish, including the same straight line we did on day 2. This led to some mixed results.
Oh, are you okay?
After this, we booked it down to Goatseye, eager to find out whether avalanche work in the west had wrapped up. At the bottom of the lift, we approached a ski patroller and asked,
Is the west open yet?
He said, by the time you ride up to the top of the lift, the terrain should be open. Ladies and gentlemen, we frickin' did it. And by we, I mean Sunshine Patrol. Anyway, we got off the Goat's Eye lift and blasted down Sunshine Coast to the Wild West Gate. I think my reaction here says it all.
Yes!
I was back in bucket list mode. We rode straight down to Pato's, one of the most anticipated lines of the entire trip. And to be fully honest, I did not expect the entrance to the couloir to be this technical, so a bit of careful side hopping was required. Past the initial crux, the couloir opened up, allowing for some fairly tight turns. While the snow wasn't as soft as I'd hoped, Pato's might just be the most aesthetic inbounds run that I've ever skied. After everyone cleared the chute, we traversed skiers left to scope out the remaining couloirs in the zone. Coming into the day, I had planned to ski all 4 chutes in the Wild West, but it quickly became clear that Luxton's, the hardest run in the West, wasn't feasible given the day's snow conditions. We continued traversing to the bottom of Anglers, the second most challenging line. Despite the mandatory 10-foot exit air, it looked far more reasonable than Luxton's. On the gondola ride back up, we checked our phones and saw that Delirium Dive had opened for the day. No way. Is this actually happening? Okay, slight change of plans. We'd head up to the dive, ski the Briex entrance all the way down to Goat's Eye, ride that lift, and then ski Anglers. Our adrenaline receptors were about to be absolutely fried after this lap. So we made it to the top of the divide lift, only to find that the gate was sealed shut. It looked like we had missed the brief window that the dive had opened for the day. No time to lament, we raced back down to Goat's Eye and made our way to the top of the West. We carefully traversed around Luxton's and worked our way to the top of Anglers. The entrance was very steep, requiring a brief straight line that funneled us straight into the gut of the couloir. The snow was just incredible, and it was surreal being surrounded by these towering limestone walls on either side. Things began to get much steeper as we made our way further and further down the couloir. Then, we saw it, the exit air, which looked so much worse than it did from the bottom. Well, too late to back out now. The only way out was straight down. I let that realization settle in, and slowly prepared myself for what came next.
Drop! Woo! I'm okay.
Honestly, I couldn't be prouder of this attempt. That right there is the single most psychotic run I've ever skied. As the adrenaline faded, something else became clear. My right ankle and shin were not in good shape. We skied back to the Goat's Eye Lodge, where I assessed my leg's condition. It was definitely a bad sprain, bad enough that on most days I would have called it right then and there. But this wasn't my home mountain, and I had no idea when I'd be back next. I took a deep breath, popped in some Advil, clicked into my skis, and prayed my leg would survive one more run down the west. We passed through the gate one last time and headed towards Wheeler's, the easiest couloir in the zone. I was in absolute agony this entire run. Each turn sent a sharp jolt of pain up my leg, but I managed to stick it out, and I'm really glad I did. This was some of the best snow of the entire day. Day 4 left me limping, barely able to talk, and as sick as a dog, but it was easily one of the most memorable ski days of my life. My time in Banff had come to an end. I said goodbye to the rest of the crew, and the 3 of us packed everything into a rental car and drove 3 hours west to Revelstoke, British Columbia. The back half of the trip had begun. Going into Revelstoke, I hadn't done as much research as I had for the other mountains on this trip. I knew a few general areas, but I figured it was the kind of place that's better to explore for yourself rather than meticulously plan out the day's itinerary. We boarded the gondola, climbing an absurd amount of vert in minutes. My ears kept popping on the way up. From there, we went straight to the Stoke chair. My ankle was still feeling a bit tender from yesterday's crash, so today was going to be a lighter day. Jalapeno didn't ski that great, but the stuff off of Vertigo Ridge rode really well. I was even able to do a small rock drop in the lower half of the Tasty Glades, and my ankle held up pretty well. Eventually, we moved over to the hot dog hallways, which were all super steep and technical, and the snow on the lower half was the best we skied all day. From there, we made our way over to the Ripper Pod, which had some sweet, low-angle, flowy tree skiing. I was just shocked with how good the snow quality was across the entire mountain. If not pure untouched powder, this is about as good as it gets. After that, we made our way back to the front side and skied a few more shots off Vertigo Ridge. Parachute was a fun little line in the hot dog hallways area, and while it isn't the gnarliest run in the world, it definitely satisfied our super skiddy chute craving for the day. From there, we tried a bit of an experimental lap, following the skier's right boundary of Vertigo Ridge all the way down. It dropped us into a steep, technical, unnamed zone that easily became the highlight of the day. After this, we headed up Stoke for one last run off Vertigo Ridge, and we skied all the way to the bottom. Yeah, my legs were absolutely convulsing by the time I reached the gondola's lower terminal. Absolutely worth it. What a friggin' day. Day 6 was honestly pretty similar to day 1, with just slightly more tracked out snow. But the biggest difference was the weather. The clouds had finally parted, revealing the Columbia River and the valley below. This is truly one of the most breathtaking views I've ever seen at a ski resort. It really puts into perspective just how much vertical Revelstoke covers. We rode up the Stoke chair and headed to the hot dog hallways to ski a line that we had scoped out the day before. It was pretty gnarly, and the lighting made things tricky. Well, I'll let you guys see how it went.
Drop! I'm good.
Yeah, not the cleanest, but still a sick little straight line. A great way to start off the morning. After this, we headed to the start of the Lemming Line and did our first proper run down the famed North Bowl. While the light was very flat, I cannot stress how awesome this area is. It's so incredibly vast, and it almost feels like your own backcountry playground. Definitely a zone I need to explore more on a repeat trip. Separate Reality Bowl was another awesome area. We'd skipped it the day before, assuming it would be fully tracked out given how close it is to the lift. But today, the skiing was excellent. Nice, chalky, smooth snow. After that, we headed to the top of the gondola to try to ski Kill the Banker as our final run of the day. Yes, we're insane. But patrol had already closed it, which was completely understandable. It was already pretty late in the day. Definitely one for the next trip. Overall, another amazing day in the books. Road trip with the boys. Nothing too eventful here, just a long drive from Revy to Whistler, filled with some absolutely diabolical conversations that I definitely can't disclose on YouTube. Man, that was one heck of a long drive. Hopefully it'll be worth it, right? Yeah, no, it wasn't worth it. In the 24 hours before we arrived, Whistler Blackcomb had been hit by a major storm cycle, but it trended warmer than expected. The upper elevations picked up solid snow totals, but several inbound slides were triggered the day before. The day we arrived, the Alpine, which is home to the most interesting terrain on the mountain, remained closed due to extreme AVI danger. Even more unfortunate, everything from mid-mountain and below had been hit by rain and sleet. We figured that the highest open terrain would probably have the best conditions, so we rode the Whistler gondola and skied down to Emerald. And well, I'll let our reactions from the one park lap we managed do the talking.
God!
Yeah, this snow was borderline unskiable. Easily some of the worst conditions I've ever skied in. 2 laps in and my clothing was fully soaked. This was not about to be a very long day. We skied down to Fitzsimmons and actually had a few decently enjoyable laps down there. Up by Emerald, the mixed conditions just made the snow wildly unpredictable. Down by Fitz, it was just straight rain, which is usually a bad thing, but it kinda worked, and we all got our first taste of spring skiing for the year. To be fair, this day was always a bit of a gamble given Whistler's coastal location compared to the other mountains we had visited. I just did not expect that the Alpine would close completely. If it had just stayed open, we'd have probably had a solid day. But oh well, we'll be back someday. For now, I guess I'm 0-3 on good Whistler days. And just like that, the Canada pilgrimage was over. What a trip! Record snow year, all-time conditions, exceptional coverage, and legendary zones opening early. But even in a record year, things don't always go according to plan. Poor visibility, avalanche closures, and warm storms are all very real possibilities. Looking back, this trip wasn't just about how good the snow was. It was about rolling with whatever the mountains threw at us, keeping expectations in check, and appreciating the moments that actually came together, especially with the folks I got to share them with. Easily an all-time trip, and I will most certainly be back. Thanks for watching. All my love, I'm out.